What's up, everybody? So today we're going to be talking about Fort Lauderdale and 10 reasons why you might not want to live here. Okay, so on this channel I cover everything there is to know about moving to or living in Fort Lauderdale and the surrounding areas. So if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe, tap the little bell to be notified every time I drop a new video. Also, I help a lot of people relocate here from out of state. That's what I specialize in. So if you're thinking about moving to Fort Lauderdale or anywhere in South Florida, make sure to give me a call, text, or email, and I got your back when moving here. So there's been a huge influx of people moving here, and maybe you're not sure about South Florida, or maybe you live here and you're just not sure about Fort Lauderdale. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So I got 10 reasons in no specific order of why you might not want to live in Fort Lauderdale. So let's get into it. All right, so the first reason you might not want to move to Fort Lauderdale is car insurance. So we have the most expensive car insurance in the country down here in Florida. The average annual premium is about $2,500 a year compared to about $1,700 a year in the rest of the US. So there's a lot of reasons for this. I mean, Florida is a no-fault state, which means that no matter who causes the accident, both people have to file insurance claims. It's also due to the drivers, which is actually my second reason why you don't want to move to Florida or Fort Lauderdale, is the bad drivers. And I've mentioned this a couple times in other videos, but they're just downright terrible. I believe that it has to do with the fact that there's just a ton of different, it's a melting pot of people. I mean, you got tourists from all over the world. You got people moving here from all over the country with their different driving styles. You got really old people, and then you got the really young people who just got their license. People running red lights because they feel like it, driving slow in the fast lane, fast in the slow lane, and everything in between. And then you got the people who try to beat out the train tracks, which those ones are fun. So bad drivers down here are a way of life. It's just part of living in Florida. And even though Florida doesn't rank high in road rage incidents, I have seen my fair share of road rage out here. It's just part of living out here. So my number one reason was car insurance. Number two was bad drivers. Okay, and on to the next reason you might not want to live in Fort Lauderdale. So the landscape here is completely flat. So if you're into mountains and hiking and outdoor things like that, Fort Lauderdale might not be the place for you. So our highest natural elevation in Fort Lauderdale is only 29 feet above sea level, which that hardly counts as an elevation. So if you are into hiking, there's a lot of parks that you can go to that have trails. They're flat. Everything is flat. And like I said, our highest elevation is 29 feet above sea level, natural. And then we have a mountain in Fort Lauderdale, which is a landfill. So that's technically the highest elevation, but it's not open to the public. So yeah, if that's your lifestyle, not the place for you. Okay, next reason that you would not want to move to Fort Lauderdale is it's overcrowded. The population just keeps growing here. There's about 845 people moving to Florida every single day, and that's projected through 2025. And we just happen to be in one of the most popular areas in South Florida. So we're getting a lot of people moving here. And not only is it a major tourist destination for 12 months out of the year, but the Miami Fort Lauderdale area was also ranked as, I believe, the 9th most populated metro area in the country out of 384 or something like that. So there's just a lot of people here. Now, chances are, if you are thinking of moving here, you're probably coming from a place that's even more populated, like New York or California, which in that case might not be a big deal to you. But if you're not coming from some place like that, yeah, it's very crowded here all year long. We do have a slow season, which is towards the summertime, but there's still a lot of people here. That's just our slow season when it comes to tourism. But Florida is very crowded, and it's just gonna keep getting worse. Okay, the next reason you might not want to move to Fort Lauderdale is hurricanes. So since I've been here, we've had a hurricane scare every single year, but we've been spared every single time, which is a good thing. But as you can see what happened with Hurricane Ian in Fort Myers, you might not always be that lucky. So hurricane season is every year from June until November, and even if we don't get a major storm, we're bound to have at least one tropical storm and we have tropical rains every single day over the summer that last, anywhere from 1 to a couple hours, but it's every single day, and the rains are torrential. So, but there is always that chance for a hurricane every single year from June till November, and in my experience, we always seem to get the scares around October and November, right at the end of hurricane season. So we just had 2 in the last 2 months, I believe, and we got spared with both of them. So that might be another reason you might not want to live here. Okay, and speaking of weather, the next reason that you might not want to live in Fort Lauderdale is the heat and humidity. It's extreme in the summertime. So the average temperature in the summer is right around 90 degrees with about 70% humidity. Now, with that humidity, the temperature feels like it's well over 100. So if you've been in extreme heat and humidity, you know the disgusting feeling that it can give. I personally like the humidity. I don't like dry heat as much, but some people don't like it. I mean, the air feels very thick when it's humid, and it's just muggy, and it's like that wet feeling, but I don't mind it. Some people might not like it. And another thing that goes along with that is that it's just never cool at nighttime, so you really can't keep your windows open down here except for maybe a couple weeks out of the year in January and February when the temperature does get into the 50s or even sometimes the 40s at nighttime and in the morning. Other than that, for 50 weeks out of the year, you can't really keep your windows open down here. Okay, the next reason you might not want to move to Fort Lauderdale is iguanas, roaches, and just all other types of wildlife. So yes, we do have lizards down here and iguanas, and I'm not just talking about the baby ones, but the Godzilla looking ones. They don't really hurt you. They kind of always run away from you, but they are considered an invasive species, which means they're not supposed to be here. They can cause harm to wildlife and even your property, but they won't hurt you. We also have roaches, which they call palmetto bugs. You're more prone to seeing those if you live near the water. And yes, they do fly. So if you move to Fort Lauderdale or Florida in general, be prepared to see at least one roach in your house, and be prepared to get a lizard in your house and maybe even a frog, because I've had that happen before. Okay, if affordable housing is something you're looking for, don't move to Fort Lauderdale, which would be my next reason why you wouldn't want to live here. So the average sales price for a home in Fort Lauderdale is about $650,000, with the average rent being about $2,700 a month for a 900 square foot apartment. Now, Fort Lauderdale used to be an affordable place to live, but I would say that all started changing around 2019, late 2019, early 2020, and then it really took off last year. A lot of people contact me, especially from the Northeast, and they think they can get a home down here for $250,000, and maybe 10 years ago, but that's just not the case anymore. And with the city constantly growing and developing, we can only really expect these prices to keep going up. So if affordable housing is what you're looking for, Fort Lauderdale is not the place for you. Okay, the next reason that you might not want to move to Fort Lauderdale is flooding and rising sea levels. So a majority of the homes in Fort Lauderdale are less than 10 feet above sea level. So almost everybody's going to feel this impact in one way or another. And whether you believe that in global warming or not, rising temperatures is going to cause rising sea levels. And the fact that Fort Lauderdale is a coastal city makes it even more vulnerable in the long term. Then there's the seawalls that they install along the shore, but that can only really do so much for the land. And then as far as flooding goes, most of the city floods. It only takes 30 minutes of hard rain to see some flooding in this city. It's not necessarily like your house is gonna flood, but the drainage is not too great in this city. A lot of water collects in the streets, and it doesn't take a lot. 30 minutes of rain could cause a street to flood out down here. Okay, so the next reason you might not wanna live in Fort Lauderdale is it's a bit of a slower lifestyle, and the customer service is kind of poor here. I hate to say it, but if you're coming from a place like New York City especially, and you're used to that fast-paced environment like I am, it's gonna drive you crazy down here, because people just, they don't move with that same pep in their step like they do up in New York. Now, I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world, because it's less stressful sometimes. Like that little bit of a slower pace is a little bit less stressful, but at the same time, it can get kind of annoying when you're just like, you're used to moving fast, and like people just don't do that down here. Now, a lot of people are coming from more faster paced environments, so hopefully we can, you know, kind of like change this in the future, but it's still Florida at the end of the day. There's still a lot of retired people here and people on vacation. So unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna change, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just something that if you can't handle that lifestyle, like I know a lot of New Yorkers just, they can't handle that slow paced lifestyle. So that might be another reason you don't want to move here. Okay, so I just gave you 10 reasons why you might not want to move to Fort Lauderdale. Now, you know, a lot of these I just figured out after I came here, but I figured I'd share them with you so that way if you're planning a move down here, it might help make your decision a little easier. So in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the channel, reach out to me if there's anything I can help you with. Watch this video that pops up next, and we'll see you on the next one.